Roland boutiques do not get enough love, and this is even more true for the TR-06, Roland's latest boutique. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Zach Marr from Alamo Music here in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications. This is our Alamo Sound Lab channel where we talk about all things music tech related. And today we're talking about the Roland TR-06, Roland's latest boutique module, and talking about a couple uncomfortable facts. One, this was released right at the same time as the TR-6S and around the same time as the Behringer RD6. And I think people were confused for a number of reasons. One, the TR-6S and the TR-06, just in the nomenclature, is confusing. And they were both marketed and in the reviews that people did often talked about at the same time. And really, they're pretty different machines. The TR-06, the boutique, is a love letter to the TR-606 and really an exploration of its history and the modifications that went along into these machines and the interface, whereas the TR-6S is more of a general macro overview of all of Roland's classic drum machines, as well as modern sampling features and an FM kind of drum sounds. So very different explorations of modern drums. And the TR-06 is really a magical piece that I even didn't fully appreciate until I started to play with it and dive into it. And I have to say also with Behringer's massive release of massive analog re-releases of many classic vintage drum machines and synthesizers, they often get a lot more of the attention because of the price point and because of the fact that they're often analog recreations, whereas the boutiques are digital recreations using ACB technology, analog circuit behavior modeling, which is, if you don't already know, incredibly detailed modeling of these classic analog instruments, where it's even modeling the circuit behavior and idiosyncrasies of these instruments. And personally, I love ACB modeling. I think as an owner of many of these classic vintage machines, you really appreciate the resolution and the ability of ACB to capture the quirkiness of a lot of these machines. I think often about the TR-08, the boutique version of the TR-808, which captures, when you have even the volumes down on some voices, hearing the notes in the background, which is true of the 808. There's quirkiness in these instruments that ACB captures, and the way that Roland has gone about studying and developing and recreating it is really, I view it as a love letter to the heritage of these instruments and really a magic way to encounter these sounds in a modern context. So the TR-06 is a recreation of the unloved Dark Horse 606, which is the contemporary of the 808 and the 909. It's somewhere a midpoint between the two, and in terms of sound, but just not as popular. Those are not super expensive to find used. And it surprised me that Roland went and made a boutique and that Behringer went and made a clone of it, because there doesn't seem to be as intense a demand for that particular vintage Roland piece. But that said, I think it's an awesome piece. I personally love the TR-606. It was used in a lot of punk music as well as house and acid music, and most iconically used in the Nine Inch Nails song Closer. So it's got a very particular tone. I really like the way it sounds. When it was released alongside the TB-303, which is kind of the iconic acid house synth sequencer. And in form factor, it's very similar. There's the TB-03 from Roland for the boutiques, and they look very similar. What are the things that Roland did with the TR-06 that is kind of a modern interpretation of the 606? So what they did, one of the things that the 606 was loved for is it had 2 trigger outs, which was very helpful in integrating with other synths and drum machines. This they added, I think it looks like, I think it's got 5 trigger outs and 1 trigger in, which they just basically beefed that up quite a bit. And that's a small detail, but it really speaks to how well Roland knows its audience and its own products. It also has some of the mods that the aftermarket mods that people would put into these synths are unlocked in this ACB recreation. You have a lot of parameter control. It's in a menu. It's not foregrounded, which is too bad, but you can tune and modify the snappiness of the snare drum and some of the attack and decay controls across the different sounds. It also has compression and a delay and an overdrive that you can apply, which are really nice effects to add when you're playing with the drum machine. It also has the ability to pan, so you can pan the different voices. There isn't individual audio outs, but you can, through the USB, record out individually and separate it out via all the different tracks, which is nice. There was aftermarket mods that allowed you to have individual outs for all of the different sounds, but you can do that effectively with the setup. So it's a really powerful tribute to the 606, really intensely focused on it, but it has a lot of modern kind of features added into it that make it a little bit richer and better and brings it up to date. So let's take a listen and we'll conclude with some final thoughts. So there you have it, the TR-06. I think it does a great job of giving you the TR-606 experience in an updated, modernized form, as well as all the bells and whistles you could ever hope to mod on a vintage TR-606. Some of the things that I find particularly magical about the TR-06 are the hands-on drive and delay effects that you can apply to the patterns. I think it really opens the TR-06 up. If the 606 had that, it would be mind-blowing. And so this really allows you to get very rich patterns and chaos and kind of beautiful sounds out of a drum pattern that I think the 606 never was able to do. So I really like that feature they added to the top. I also like the way 606 plays and programs. It's fairly intuitive. It has, in the play pattern mode, you can just have it play 4 patterns in sequence fairly easily without having to program. You just kind of hold it down and get all 4, and there's 4 different blocks, and so you can create 64 note patterns really easily, and that combined with the overdrive and the delay really allows for some creativity. I tried to show that as I was playing it. It just is easy to use and fun, and it has that aggressive, nice mid-rangey sound that the TR-606 also has. So those are my thoughts on it. Other nice things, it's a boutique, so it's incredibly well built. It's more well built than the original. When you hold an original, it's a lot lighter and feels more flimsy than these boutiques, and that's kind of funny. And with the TB-03 and the TB-06 in particular, the TD-06 in particular, because these were they're also a little bit more expensive. This is almost as expensive as a vintage TR-606. So you might wonder, does it make sense? I think it does from a longevity standpoint, and from a musical standpoint, you can do a lot more with this, with its parameter kind of sculpting and the effects and its integratability with modern setups and its ability to do trigger outs, what expanded to 5. So really great piece from Roland. I think it's underrated. I definitely think the market hasn't reacted to it, partially I think because it's a clone of a 606, and again, the 606 is not the most loved of the vintage pieces, but I think this is the dark horse of the boutique series, just like the TR-606 is the dark horse of vintage Roland drum machines. Would love to hear your thoughts. What did I leave out? What do you love about the TR-06 and the 606, or what do you not love? Please leave a comment below. Would love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications. And if you want to talk more, you can find us at alamomusic.com. We'd love to find you there, chat, email, give us a call. And thank you for watching.